Testing, testing. Oh, it's on.
You get a feel for how close, here we go, how close you need to bring it to your,
Yes,
yeah.
for sure.
I don't think so, unless you want to. I'm not, I don't know when no. Let's make sure I don't look like a slob here.
I don't know what I look like either. I've got my vest on.
Yeah,
It's
there
a
you
little
go.
chilly, so.
Yeah, I'm never, like when I'm top to bottom on camera, I'm like, what do I do with my hands? Like I have to have a script in my hands. So if you see me when I'm standing up on the news, I'll either have a pencil or it's like a...
Would you like a microphone?
And when it's really noisy on a live report, these are great, but they also pick up everything else. So you'll see a lot of reporters when it's crazy, they bring that mic real close.
With the big...
yeah, right. We ready to go? We're good. All right. So I think we're on streaming right now. Everyone at home, wherever home is, maybe not even in Pittsburgh, could be anywhere. We welcome you. So this is part of our Yom Kippur service where we bring in some members of our Temple Sinai family and we learn about their journey through Judaism, whether they were born Jewish or not, and how they came to Temple Sinai. And that's really it. But I hope for a good discussion, and I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot. Darcy Gordon is our first guest. She is a Temple Sinai member, not Jewish, but raising her children Jewish, a Jewish husband, members of Temple Sinai. So let me start, Darcy. Where did you grow up, and what was the religion in your life when you grew up?
Hi, I'm Darcy Gordon, and hi to everybody on Zoom as well. I grew up in Rochester, New York. I am the daughter of a Presbyterian minister, and I went to church every week. I was actually born in Maryland, lived there for about a year and a half, and moved to a lovely church up in right near Lake Ontario in Rochester. That's where I grew up. My father was the head minister of Somerville Presbyterian Church, and I really was a participant. I did youth group, I did choir, I was confirmed, I was a deacon of the church.
A deacon? Wow, all right.
So I did all of that, and it was I was a PK. It was of course I was embarrassed by my father, and my mother, but I'm going through that now with my kids. So it goes around, comes around. Goes around, comes around. All right. So, but it was a really wonderful upbringing. My father was a very much of a social justice-minded minister. So. He marched with Martin Luther King in the 60s, even though he was a minister in the south of the Mason-Dixon line. He came from a long line of ministers in his family as well, all very social justice-minded. So left for college, didn't really do much church in college, went less than a handful of times. Graduated, moved to Boston, went to church a little bit, not so much.
Okay.
Went to grad school back in Rochester, New York, and was coming down to my nephew's second birthday party. My brother and his family live here. And my mother said, "Why are you going to your nephew's second birthday party?" I said, "Why not?" So I went, and I met this nice young man who was Uncle Mike to my nephew, even though he wasn't related. And we started a long-distance romance. Between Rochester, New York and Pittsburgh. And I recall on one of our first dates, I don't know if you remember this, but he said, "Is it a problem that I'm Jewish?" And I was like, not on our second date, He didn't really like that answer, but I guess he was thinking longer term than I was at the time. But it clearly worked out. Let's see, what am I skipping over?
You're doing a great job, by the way.
Thank you. And I got my mother-in-law's permission to tell this story, but whenever my husband dated, I didn't get your permission though. Whenever he dated somebody new, she would ask, is she Jewish and what does her father do? And no and a Presbyterian minister were not what she was looking for. But the story could be much longer, but I will keep it brief. We met and we got along very well. And early on, at some point, my parents and his parents met, and that went very well. My father being a little bit philosophical at times, and that sort of everybody scratching their head. But my parents were always very supportive. They met Mike before I did because he was a friend of my brother's, and they met him when my nephew was just born. What am I missing?
Well, let me ask a couple questions.
Sure.
So that's
Great
a
idea.
strong Christian Protestant upbringing.
Yes.
I mean, to have a father as a minister. Some of these questions are, you hear this asked of people sometimes. Could you have possibly imagined ... as a young person going to church all the time, that you would marry a Jew? Probably distantly
Never thought about
possible.
it. In fact, it's interesting because, my children had their bat mitzvahs, and I went to one bat mitzvah growing up, I realized. I thought, maybe I didn't have any Jewish friends, but now I'm like, no, they were Jewish, and I just guess I wasn't invited. But it made a big impact on me, and then a few years ago, I was looking through scrapbooks, and I had the invitation from Deanna Feldman to her bat mitzvah in my scrapbook, because it must have made an impression. I remember I gave her a photo album, and I didn't know what to give, and her thank you note to me afterwards. And so it made an impression on me, but no, I had never in my life imagined, marrying a Jewish man necessarily. I wanted to marry somebody I loved, and that's what that's who I did.
You made the right
yeah,
choice.
I did.
Is what you did. Well, just a little background about me that's similar to you. I grew up Christian, Methodist. My father was not a minister. My mother taught Sunday school and faithfully went to church every Sunday. My father and I, sometimes we played tennis Sunday morning. Sometimes we went to church. And then I met Nancy. And like you, I'd go to church when I was younger, but in college, I didn't. And as a young professional, out of college, I didn't. And so, I lost some touch with it, but I was able to reconcile making the move to a conversion for me. And my mother was a little concerned about it, I must say. But in the end, they were supportive, you had supportive parents too, so that's important, isn't it?
Absolutely. My mother's still living, and she's incredibly supportive. My father actually married us. He was the officiant in our wedding, which was
Wow.
extremely special. He
That's
worked with
great.
rabbi friends that he had to understand
Oh.
what scriptures he should put in and what other readings. And we had it was, I don't know if, anybody here were there? Was that our wedding? No? Mike, you were there.
Okay.
It was a really special, under a huppah on a mountaintop. It was really quite special with a real nice blend and honoring both traditions.
Yeah. Much credit to your father. And your mother.
Yes, my mother was the support behind him, and so before we got married, of course, we made the decision to have Jewish children. And I make the distinction of not raising my children Jewish. My children are Jewish. I make that very clear. To me, that's very important because I really have invested in this. Before we got married, we made a decision. It was important to Mike, more important to Mike to have Jewish children than it was for me to have Christian children.
Tell me about those discussions, because that's a big move to say, as someone who grew up Christian, I will raise the children Jewish.
Yeah, I remember at a gathering at my brother's house years ago when Mike and I were dating, and a woman said to me, just make a decision. And I don't remember who this woman was, but I said, okay, I got to make a decision. And I'm not always great at making decisions. So we made the decision. The interesting thing is that Mike grew up Jewish, but I made him more Jewish.
Funny how that
he's
works
nodding.
out sometimes.
So when we made that decision and we got married, I said, okay, well, they have to be Jewish, so we have to learn. Like, yes, you're Jewish, but you don't know, and I don't know, so we have to learn. So we enrolled in the Melton class. We did the 2-year Melton class, committed to that, and that was a really a great experience. And then I was pregnant during the 2nd year of the Melton class, and had a baby soon thereafter. And within a week of her birth, we had a baby naming at our home, and we did make the decision. Somebody during that Melton class, one of the conservative rabbis, said, if you convert your children as babies, they will be at least considered Jewish by the Reform always, but also the conservatives. So we did convert our children. Rebecca was born in 2001, and Dora came to, we are an adoptive family, and so Dora was converted at probably about a year or something like that, soon after she came to us, home with us from Korea.
Forgive me for not knowing, your husband has been a member here?
No.
Okay.
His family, he grew up more at Tree of Life.
Okay, sure.
That was not going to be a place where I would, it's a lovely place.
Sure, of
but
course.
we needed to find a community where we would be welcomed and comfortable, and our children would feel the same.
Enter Temple Sinai.
Enter Temple Sinai. And I don't think we didn't look anywhere else. It was this and that was it. It just
So
felt very
you're
comfortable.
basically temple shopping at this point. How did you know to come here, or what pulled you here, you and your husband?
I'm not sure. We honestly, we just came here. We live in Squirrel Hill, so we came here, and it was, we didn't look any further. We were involved in, looking at you because you were our babysitter, we were involved in the Purim spiels. I was more than welcome to be a part of the Purim spiels when I was pregnant with Rebecca. I was one of the virgins. That was fun. Remember that? About 8.5 months pregnant at that point too. But yeah, so it just
That's
always
good.
felt welcome here. So we joined before we had children.
We know Temple Sinai is a wonderful family of families, very inclusive. It sounds to me like you found that to be the case.
Absolutely. As I mentioned, I grew up in a community that I had youth group. I sang in the choir. I was just really involved in my church, and I wanted that for my kids. I wanted them to be a part of a community. I didn't want them to say, yeah, I'm Jewish, but I'm not doing Jewish. And I wanted them to really just be a part of it. And they have felt very comfortable here as well, and I'm very grateful for that.
So it's been, what a journey for you. Presbyterian minister father, Jewish children, Temple Sinai.
Yeah.
It's a great story. It's a wonderful story.
Thank you. Years ago there was a piece in the Jewish Chronicle that an event was held where the last Jew was sitting Shiva by himself, and it was because of intermarriage, and that just rips my heart out and makes me furious when I see things like that. Because it's possible with places like Temple Sinai, welcome families in of all backgrounds, and you can have. My kids are very Jewish. My kids are very.
When you say very Jewish, what do you mean?
They love being Jewish. They love being Jewish. I've heard them say that they're glad we chose Judaism for them.
Oh, wow.
And my father was fine with it, and he said, I just want them to have a respect for other faiths. So, and they do. They do.
And that's what we teach here.
Right. So, what am I missing?
We're
Rana,
missing...
I'm looking at you, Rana. Oh, I spoke of my father's ceremony. Yeah, my father's ceremony. Mike, what am I missing? Do you mind if I call my husband up?
No, it's fine.
Sorry. Going off the rails
It's
here.
Mike, right?
Come on up and say it in the microphone so people can hear it.
We're bringing her husband up. You're going to talk about the ceremony where they got married.
Just a very quick
Sure, yeah. I like this. I like this impromptu. You never know what's going to happen with a microphone.
I just want to say her father was an amazing, amazing guy. Anybody who knew him knew that about him. Her family is all tremendous, but her father was really quite an inspiring and amazing guy. And he did our wedding. And the one story I remember from it, among many, is that at some point I think my brother, who was the best man, wanted to acknowledge the job that he did. This was at the reception after the wedding. And he called on Reverend Converse Hunter to come up and be sort of recognized. And at that moment, Reverend Converse Hunter was in the bathroom. So when he came out, so we were in a tent and we had porta-johns. It was an outdoor wedding and reception. And when he came out and back into the tent, he didn't realize the moment was when my brother had called upon him to be recognized. And when he came into the tent, he received a standing ovation from all 200 of us, or however many. And it was because of of the ceremony that he did. The service that he put together was so meaningful, and it connected with everybody there from both sides of the family. And I just, when everybody stood to welcome him back and applaud for the job he did, he really put himself into it, and he really made it a memorable experience for all of us, and that was one memorable moment for me.
Before you go, I asked her, could she have imagined that she would marry a Jewish man? Could you have imagined, as a Jew, you're going to be married by a Presbyterian minister?
No, not at all.
I knew the answer before.
I certainly could have imagined marrying a non-Jewish woman, but I don't think I would have gone as far to say, and the ceremony to be done by a Presbyterian minister.
Good point.
No, good question.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for adding to it there. Well, I think we are good, and I love your story. I love your story, and we're so happy to have you at Temple Sinai.
Couldn't be a better place for us.
Oh, that's
Thank you.
fantastic. I'll take that. All right. And we will transition. Yes. You got the 18th green applause there.
There we go.
Yeah. I think Lexi and Charles are next. You're going to love this couple. Everybody loves them. Charles can just step right up on top of this. He doesn't need stairs. All right. So we're good. Yeah, if you want to turn that chair. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate it. All right. Is this positioning good? I think it is. I got a thumbs up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Lexi Sigismund Christie and Charles Christie, members of Temple Sinai. Yes, I'm never sure, but
close to it.
Close to it. Okay, good. It's going to happen. Full disclosure: I was at their wedding not long ago, and it was amazing for many, many reasons. The love that you two have for each other, and the energy that this young man. You have never met a guy who is nicer and more aggressively nice and has just such a command of the room. It was fun to. You, Charles, are from New Zealand.
I am, yes.
Go ahead.
Yep, I'm Charles. Nice to meet you all. So I grew up in New Zealand, but was born in Pittsburgh. Funnily enough, when my dad was working at Presby as a doctor. So I have dual citizenship, and I was actually baptized down the road at a local Episcopalian church. So we actually met in New York about 8 years ago at a Steelers bar, and
already a great story.
It felt like 8. Lexi's telling me 5, but and why don't you introduce yourself, Lex?
You know what? I have a microphone, so you can. I realized I have one here, but go ahead. Sorry about that.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Lexi Christie. Lexi Sigismund Christie has to legally be changed next year because we're going to New Zealand later this year. Didn't want to mess with any of the name-changing issues, but I was raised Jewish. I am Jewish. I was born in Pittsburgh. My parents have been members of Temple Sinai for many years. I don't know exactly how many, but many. And so Temple Sinai was a large part of my growing up. I was bat mitzvahed here. I went to Sunday school, bat mitzvahed. I was confirmed here. And I was actually bat mitzvahed by both Rabbi Gibson and Rabbi Friedman, who was here. And so, yes, Temple Sinai was a huge part of my life. But one of the important pieces of my story is that I came from an interfaith marriage, and my mother's parents had an interfaith marriage as well. So while I was raised Jewish, I also grew up experiencing different faiths, decorating a Christmas tree, and sometimes attending church with my grandmother on Christmas or Easter out of respect for her. I kind of just sat there, but it was a respect thing, so that she had family with her on her special day.
Well done. Go ahead, Charles.
And I grew up going to church most Sundays, including Sunday school, and then similar to Darcy, I think when I got a little older, maybe before college, maybe in my teens, I kind of drifted away a little bit, but have always had a strong faith and belief in the fundamentals and kind of religion and things like that.
So this next question is for both of you, but I'll start with you, Lexi. So here you are, this Jewish girl with some experience in Christianity. What was your rules or none at all in dating a Jewish person, a Jewish boy?
So, very good question. When I was bat mitzvahed, I had the choice to technically convert, to go to the mikveh, because my mother was not Jewish and had not converted. And Rabbi Gibson said to me, in my eyes, you are always Jewish, but you can make this decision. And I made the choice to convert because I felt if I married someone who was conservative, I wanted to be Jewish in their eyes if they would accept that mikveh conversion. Flash forward, to me, love is whoever you fall in love with.
Sure.
And because of the experience that I had growing up, I didn't feel that I necessarily needed to marry someone that was Jewish to still have Judaism in my life. And so I happened to meet and fall in love with someone who was not Jewish, but accepts me for who I am.
Right, you were going to be Jewish no matter what.
Yes.
Charles, there you were, what was the church?
It was St. Mark's Church in New Zealand. So, and
Here, where you were baptized.
I'd have to ask Mum. It was down in
Close to St. Edmunds, I think.
Yeah, I'll have to ask Mum. But I grew up in a very, relatively Christian family, but always kind of under the assumption that kind of love prevails as well. Didn't genuinely think growing up that I would be sitting here in a synagogue in Pittsburgh talking about my interfaith marriage, but life is kind of crazy like that, and it's kind of gone in full circle. So, and from my family, I think we're very inclusive and completely open, and Mum is just tickled pink to see us happy. So,
Yeah, and then here we are at Temple Sinai.
yeah.
Tell me about your journey here to Temple Sinai. You already had it, but it continued, obviously.
So I had some great interactions with Rabbi Thalman, and we came in here over a few months probably, learned a lot about the Jewish religion and got given some homework, including baking 4 kinds of matzah items during Passover, and I had to email them to Rabbi Thalman for proof. And it was very eye-opening learning a little bit more about the religion and kind of the overlapping trends that you obviously have in interfaith religions. So.
And he's a hard no when it comes to gefilte fish.
No.
Can one blame him?
Yeah. For me, I think Temple Sinai was always a given. It's where I grew up. We had been in New York together and also separately for about 6 or 7 years prior to the pandemic. Moved back 2 years ago and have decided to stay here. And so this is kind of a home that's always been here. And even pre-pandemic, I was streaming services during the high holidays.
Good for you.
So
yes.
I've always been connected and probably milking my parents' membership for a little too long. So I still think I'm a member, but we will be
Milking
official
my
members.
parents' membership. That's a good one.
Yeah. I love how Temple Sinai is so inclusive, and Rabbi Feldman makes a big effort to engage with the other religious leaders in the community, and I think that was very reassuring for myself as well as my family. And when we got married, it kind of made sense for us to have a rabbi take the wedding, but Rabbi Feldman was kind enough to offer up my bishop to take part of the wedding and offer a blessing, which was very kind of suitable given Lexi's background in interfaith marriages as well.
Yeah, I thought he did a tremendous job. Again, that wedding was so cool, and when the Maori
Haka.
yeah, came out and did their thing, it's one of the most unusual and exciting weddings I've ever been to. I don't know your parents other than meeting them, but I love meeting them. And what I'm hearing is support through your life and yours as well, and now the support of this Temple Sinai family. That really makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and that's why we chose to stay here too, because of how open Rabbi Feldman was. I mean, in choosing a rabbi to marry us, I was very specific about wanting a rabbi to marry us, but we needed to find a rabbi who would also bring in a faith that was very important to Charles's family and Charles. So that was really the reason and what has kept us, and yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I think we're done with you guys.
Thank you.
Continue to milk your parents' membership.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, good job.
Thank you.
Wasn't that easy? I told you.
Wasn't too bad.
Okay, next up, the Katzins. Are you ready? Oh, I know. By the way, Matlock called. He wants his suit back. It's beautiful. Matlock, Southern attorneys.
I only wear it on 70.
It's beautiful. I love it. It's wonderful. All right. Talk about a couple of people who don't need an introduction, wherever you're watching from right now. When I think of Temple Sinai royalty, I knew you were going to say that, but it's true. And everybody we've got a few people in the audience here nodding their heads. And I don't know all of your story. I know some of it. Let's start. You're both from Pittsburgh, yes?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Born and raised.
Born and raised. And
It's going to be hard to follow them because we're so ordinary. Which is,
no, you are among the bedrock of this family of families. All right, tell me how you guys met and then how that eventually led to Temple Sinai. You should have this, Bob.
Oh.
Once again, I'm stealing microphones. Sorry about that.
well, we'd known each other for years. I was good friends with his sister. I was at the swimming pool. He was at the golf. He was playing golf, so we never connected. But at Pitt, he was a little lost, so I helped him.
Oh, a little lost.
I
What
helped
does that
him.
mean?
I was a lot lost.
Were you?
I helped him register and showed him where to go. I mean, he came from a military school, and he didn't know what was going on. So anyway, we are also a blended family because I am Rhoda Sholem. He is
It's called a mixed marriage.
a mixed marriage, yes. So, so when we were getting married, it was, where do we get married? And at the time, Bob's father, Nate Katzin, was president of Temple Sinai, so there was no issue. We got married here. Actually, we got married in the auditorium in front of the stage, which is no longer there. This sanctuary wasn't built yet. And
You're dating yourself right now.
yeah, that was a long time ago. Yeah, I liked that stage. We had lots of Purim spiels on that stage, didn't we?
Heads nodding here. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know where I was. Where was I?
You
We got married here.
We
married
got married
yes.
here.
Yeah.
And I immediately took to Temple Sinai. I joined everything, the sisterhood. I was in plays. I was chairman of the new members committee for 10 years. I've just done everything at Temple Sinai. This is my family. I love it here.
Wait, who was the rabbi? Was it Ilson who married you? Who was
Yes.
Aaron
yes.
Ilson? Yes.
And my father went up to Rabbi Ilson and said, "Now look, Rabbi Ilson, I want this to be short." And Rabbi Ilson almost had a stroke.
Yeah, I don't
But-
do short, he promised.
Yeah, he didn't do short.
So here you were, in effect, kind of a longtime member, or at least a member for a few years before. And tell me about married life and how Temple Sinai has been for you over the years.
What do you want to say?
Your turn.
Well, I'm going to start a little bit sooner than you asked me to
Okay,
start.
absolutely.
Because she covered the important part.
Okay.
76 years ago, I was introduced to Temple Sinai.
There you go. Thank you, Ellen.
And it was the year that 35 or 40 members, my parents included, decided to create Temple Sinai.
This was 1946, correct?
1946.
Okay, yeah, right.
The executive offices were above Sun Drug at the corner of Forbes and Murray. Anybody remember Sun Drug and Forbes and Murray?
Few hands going up,
Okay,
yes.
yeah. It's now Cold Stone Ice Cream. But the executive offices were there. We didn't have the Worthington Mansion. We were trying to purchase it. So we went to school, my sister Sally and I went to Sunday school at not Calvary, I think it was, I can't remember the name of the church. Anyway, it'll come to me.
Next to the JCC.
What is it? No.
The Church of the Redeemer.
Church of the Redeemer, thank you. Okay. And back then, we didn't have a lot of kids in Temple Sinai, didn't have a lot of kids in the religious school, so I think my sister was in a class with pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, and I was in the combination of first, second, and maybe third grades. I'm not sure. Fast forward a year or two, we were able to purchase, my parents and the other members were able to purchase the Worthington Mansion. And that's how I got my start at Temple Sinai. The earliest memories I have of Temple Sinai, and nobody's going to top this. When my parents had they had board meetings and committee meetings and even social gatherings, they didn't know what to do with their kids. All their kids were small, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. I was 6 years old at the time. So they planted us in the swimming pool. In the Rogaliner Lounge, which is now the Rogaliner Lounge, there was a swimming pool. No water, but they did have steps on both sides. And there were about 10 or 12, maybe 15 kids when meetings were going on. That was our playpen. So we played in the swimming pool, and our parents said, "Don't come out until the meeting's over." And back then, we listened to our parents. Nobody even started to climb the ladder.
Yeah.
I mean,
In other words, they were saying, don't get out of the pool.
exactly.
That is
Anyway, so that was my first memory. Obviously, a handful of years later, they filled the pool in and had it as a utility room. But that was the early beginnings from my perspective at Temple Sinai, and it was like my second home because I was always here. My parents were here, and obviously I was always here with my sister. Fast forward to the age of 13, Rabbi Levinson was our rabbi, and he bar mitzvahed me. At the age of maybe 16, I was confirmed by Rabbi Ilson. And again, years later, he married us, and then our 3 children were all b'nai mitzvahed and confirmed here at Temple Sinai with various other rabbis, Fuchs and Ed Cohn. And that takes us up to almost the present.
I would think and great stories, by the way, I would think it's comforting. You've been in the ground floor here.
No, below the ground floor.
In the pool, below the ground floor. And to stick with it all these years and to see what it's become, I would think that's a wonderful thing.
Yes.
I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah,
You don't
yeah,
have to say
yes,
it's a wonderful.
it is, but I have to give credit to Ellen because she was actually more the involved member than I was. If I was on one committee, she was on three. She
She's
was
showing you up.
always has, always will. But she kind of my background is very, very Jewish. I'm Jewish inside and out. But when it comes to the religious aspect, I wasn't 100% there. I hate to admit it, but the truth is the truth. I'm historically very Jewish, community very Jewish.
Culturally Jewish.
Jewish. I went to a prep school in Virginia. There were 175 guys there, and 4 of us were Jewish. And none of the 4 Jews hid the fact, even though I don't want to say tortured, but we were tormented at times. That was back in the late 50s, so it wasn't unreasonable. But I've always been Jewish, and Ellen has kind of centered me from the religious standpoint. I said, I do this and I do that and I do that, and she said, but we should attend. And I said, well, I really don't. We should attend. Okay, we'll attend. So she keeps me centered from that perspective.
So here you are all these years later. Give me an idea, through all your experiences, what Temple Sinai really means to you. I'll start with you, Ellen.
Well, like I said before, it means family. It means I'm grounded when I'm here. My friends are here. This is my community. I just love all aspects of the religion, of the traditions. When I first joined Temple Sinai, I was amazed that the young people were friends with the older people. I mean, that's just not the way it was at Rodef. There were kind of cliques, and this was just one big family. Everyone knew everyone. Everyone helped each other, and it was just a loving experience to be here. And I thrived here. I really did. I learned how to interact with people, and it's just part of my life, part of my being.
Yeah, Bob?
For me, it's just a second family. I was introduced to it at the age of 7. I've known no other. I have no other. I was involved with none other. It's just my family and my family, and it's just the way it is.
And that's the way it is on this. Guys, thank you so much. I'll take the microphones from you. Yes. Thank you, Bob. Well done. Bob and Ellen Katzen, and before we had Charles and Lexi Christie, and before that, Darcy Gordon. So thank you all. I think there was some nervousness about what this discussion would be, but you guys did a beautiful job. And you told the story of why this place is so important to you. Whether you were born Jewish, not born Jewish, you're raising your kids Jewish, you've been here forever like you guys have, or you've just joined. We welcome you. And so everyone, thank you for watching. That's it for now.
Hate to make you go back and forth. Oh, now we're on. So there may just be people, because it's only 2:45, so we can wait a moment.
I will let people know.
Hello, everybody. We're going to start in a second. So if I do this, my glasses are dirty. If I do this, it's sharp, but you're all fuzzy. It's clean, but fuzzy, so it's a tough call. I'm trying to... Did you turn me off? Oh, now... I'm on Zoom. Hello in Zoom. So we're not showing, right? So I can't see who's there or whatever? Okay. Will I be able to hear them, or they're going to chat? Is there any interaction with the people on Zoom? Are the people on Zoom able to get this thingy, which I gave somebody here? We'll have to ask Dale. We'll have to ask Dale. All right, people on Zoom, how many of you are still in pajamas? That's the question. If you're on Zoom, are you still in pajamas? And I want to be very clear, if I were on Zoom, I would still be in pajamas. So I want to... I'm not proud of that fact, but look, you got to... How can I... Hello. I'll go way over there. Yeah, I was just about to say, would you mind? You can sort of do one half. I'll do the other. No, you're going to speak. All right. So we got people coming in. All right. I want to have that presence Dave Johnson has. Hey, I like how it's like the man sits in front of a TV camera all the time. Like he just seems very comfortable in that role. All right, so we could get started, I guess. So I'm just sort of delaying because it's Yom Kippur and people will keep trickling in. So you got someplace else to go? All right. So hello, we can't see who's on Zoom. I guess you could chat. Hopefully when Dale comes back in, people on Zoom, there is a document that we should be able to share so you can follow along. I don't know, but hopefully we'll get there. All right, hi everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'll stall with one quick story. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Rabbi Larry Friedman. I'm director of JJEP. JJEP is a joint Jewish education program between Beth Shalom and Road of Shalom. I used to work here. When I first came in 2019, when I first got here, just before the pandemic, so Deborah and I were very excited to come here for Rosh Hashanah, right? We got here in the summer sleepy, and then so we come here for Rosh Hashanah. I remember we were walking in over there, and it was like, oh, Rabbi Friedman, Rabbi Friedman, Rabbi Friedman. It felt pretty good. So, Rabbi Friedman, and like all these people, and then somebody said, who is that? I hear, and then this person, he's some guy who worked here. So it was like to a third of the people I was returning hero, and to 2/3 of the people I was like, who's that? And so it was pretty. I felt pretty good and humbling all at the exact same moment. So that was good. But I did ask Rabbi Feldman, like for the last couple of years, I was like, can I teach something? And he's like, sure. So it's really fun to be able to come back and teach a little bit. So that's my story. We have some documents up here, some sheets if anyone who had just come in. This also, Drew is like, you're gonna have 100 people. I'm like, oh, I feel pretty good about myself. It's like, you people are fantastic, but you're not 100. So once again, whenever you start to believe your own press, just don't, because it'll catch up with you. It always does. So what I wanted to do, is talk about the vidui, the confession. If anyone wants to talk, I have mics here, and I just need to hand them out, both sort of for us to hear, but also for the people on Zoom to hear. And again, if Drew comes back in, tell him, you can ask him if anyone can share the document. Sorry about that. I don't know why I'm looking up there. I know, because you're usually projected up there, and I can usually see you. So, and yet there's nothing there. All right. So I have a vidui. I have a little essay about vidui, about one word. We're going to drill down into one word, and then I have a vidui that I really, really, really don't like. So we'll see if you like it. And then a vidui for millennials, and if we have time, we'll see if we can come up with our own. So the first thing is, of course, with vidui is confession. And that's the part where I know a lot of you, and so you're actually a little smarter than the average bear. But usually when I talk about confession, the first word, you want to guess what the first thing is that people say to me? Right, Catholic, right. Immediately they go, Catholics. Like, we do that. And of course my answer is, as my answer always is, we came first. So, not trying to be mean about it, I'm just suggesting that the Catholic Church might have taken things from Jewish theology that already existed. There is confession. There is confession. We just don't have that box, which makes really good scenes in television and movies, right? We don't have that, the drama isn't there. We just, so actually in the daily service, in the daily prayers, there's a short vidui every day. So you just sort of run through it along with all the rest of the prayers. So we don't have the drama, but we've certainly been doing it. So this is the vidui. We just did it today. We'll do it again later on. So, our God and God of all generations, may our prayers reach your presence. And when we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin. In truth, we have stumbled and strayed, we have done wrong. I want to bring your attention to the Hebrew up above. The Hebrew up above, the last two lines, okay? The last two lines of the Hebrew up above, okay? That would be like the line, our God, above that. Yeah, good, we're good? So it says, Tzadikim anachnu, velo chatanu, aval anachnu chatanu. Okay, so it starts Adonai Eloheinu Avotenu V'Imotenu, like Tzadikim anachnu v'lo chatanu, aval anachnu chatanu. So it means literally, like what it's saying up above is, we want to say, we want to say Tzadikim anachnu, which means we are tzadikim. We're tzaddiks, right? Righteous people. V'lo chatanu, and we haven't sinned. Aval. Now this, we don't need you to be an Israeli to know this word. Many of you may remember the word aval from Hebrew school. Anybody? But, I'm hearing it here and there. But, okay, but. Aval, but anachnu chatanu. We sinned. We would love to say that we're tzadikim, and we haven't sinned, but we've sinned, okay? So there's two things. So I want to tell you one of my favorite puns. So how is Yom Kippur like Purim? Okay, how is Yom Kippur like Purim? So you got to work with me on this one a little bit, okay? In America, we call it Yom Kippur. In some of the liturgy, we call it Yom Kippur. But we also call it Yom Kippurim, okay? Yom Kippurim. So if you go to Israel, you'll hear people colloquially talk about Yom Kippurim. Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. Yom Kippurim, Day of Atonements. Same thing, okay? Yom Kippurim. You with me? Okay, Yom, Day, Kippurim, Atonements. Ki means like. It can mean like in Hebrew. Okay? It can mean like in Hebrew. So like analogy, like. Right? It can be like. So Yom Kippurim is Yom Ki Purim. So Yom Kippurim, Day of Atonements, is a Yom, a day, Ki, like Purim. Why? Because on Purim, the tzadikim, the righteous, the tzadikim dress up like wicked people. And on Yom Kippurim, the wicked people dress up like the righteous. We want to say we haven't sinned, but we've sinned. Right? We want to say we haven't sinned, but we've sinned. And then it goes on, Ashavnu Bagadnu, we've done this, we've done that, we've done that. So go to this page here, the next page. So this is by Rabbi Eli Kaunfer, and I'm going to read it to you just because so the Zoom people can hear it. So I'm going to read this one. Confession is one of the most central aspects of Yom Kippur. What does it mean to really confess? The Babylonian Talmud offers an answer to this question through the action of Samuel, one of the most influential teachers of the rabbinic age. Samuel's student Bar Hamudi reports of his teacher, I was standing before Samuel, and he was seated, when the prayer leader arrived at the phrase, but we have sinned, Aval chatanu. Samuel stood up. We learn that this is the essence of confession. In fact, Mar Zutra, a later authority, reports that if one says only, but we have sinned, one need confess no further. So what is so significant about the words aval, but, chatanu, we have sinned? The announcement that chatanu, we have sinned, makes sense, chatanu. But what about aval, but? Why aval? Couldn't we do with chatanu alone? I think the many meanings behind the word aval reveal a deeper comprehension of what confession is all about. In the Vidui, the next page, of most communities today, these two words, aval chatanu, appear in the larger context of saying, we are not so arrogant and insolent as to say before you, Adonai our God and our ancestors' God, we are righteous and have not sinned. But we have sinned. But in many versions, this reads, we are arrogant and obstinate. We say before you that we are righteous and have not sinned, but we have sinned. In this formulation, the word aval is not just a rhetorical addition. It is a radical disjuncture in the penitent's thought process, a psychological turning point. Consciously or subconsciously, we spend so much time living the lie that we are blameless, that we are righteous, that we have not sinned. The turning point comes only when we say the word aval, but. We like to say we haven't sinned, but in fact, we have. Confession is only useful once we set aside our rationalized self-deception and confront the reality of our actions. It is not enough to say we have sinned. We must also, at least implicitly, concede that we prefer imagining we have not, hence the all-important but. We pretend to be someone blameless, but we are not the person we pretend to be. Although very common in modern Hebrew, the word aval occurs only 11 times in the Bible and only twice in the Torah. Which when I first read that, like the word but, a conjunction, which I must use, 50 times a day, is in the Torah twice. I don't know what that means about the Torah, except maybe it never... The word aval is not in the Torah. You could look up maybe ki, could be but, kasher, maybe they could therefore. What?
I thought I was taught that was different for people.
Ach?
And I think I've seen that.
I mean, there's that, maybe. Still weird that the word aval is not, for such a common word that you would use in modern Hebrew, it's still, I'm going to have to look that up. Are there other words of hesitancy in the Torah in place of aval? Yeah.
I thought that the Torah, the 5 books,
Yeah.
was the Bible.
No, the 5 books of the Bible, first 5 books of the Bible, right? Right, so the Bible has 34 books. Tanakh is Torah and then Nevi'im and Ketuvim, right? Torah and then the prophets and then the writings, all the Megillot, Chronicles, that's the Bible, right? So Tanakh, Torah, right? I know, everybody gets confused. Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, Tanakh, Torah, right? So that's why that's what people always say, the first 5 books. Because, right, it's the first 5 books. And then when we're done with the 5 books, then we go to Joshua in Nevi'im, in the books of the prophets. And then we're off and running. Nevi'im and Samuel and whatever. It keeps going. Okay, so, although very common in modern Hebrew, the word aval occurs only 11 times in the Bible, twice in the Torah. The first time, Genesis 17:19, is when Abraham cannot believe that God is going to give Sarah a son. When Abraham laughs at this prediction, God responds, Aval, Sarah ishtecha yoledet v'cha ben. Aval, Sarah your wife will give birth to a son for you. What does aval mean in this context? Both Rashi and Onkelos make it clear. Aval means in truth, although conceptually related to but, in truth has a different valence. It is a statement of the actual reality, not the apparent reality. Rashi connects this verse to the other time Aval appears in Torah, Genesis 42:21. Here, the context is very different. Joseph and his brothers are encountering each other for the first time since the brothers sold Joseph into slavery. The brothers, who do not recognize Joseph, are starving from famine, while Joseph, who does recognize his brothers, commands a whole storehouse of food. Joseph accuses the brothers of being spies and demands that they return with Benjamin, after which the brothers say among themselves, Aval ashamim anachnu. Aval, we are guilty on account of our brother Joseph, because we looked at his anguish, but we did not listen. Therefore, this trouble has come upon us. Here too, Rashi and Onkelos translate aval as in truth. This is a moment of truth for the brothers, an experience of facing up to the reality of their sin from so many years ago. Their guilt runs very deep, and they only start to confront it by recognizing the truth introduced by aval. So maybe there is other conjunctions in the Torah, right, that will be like for a hesitancy or I don't know what you'd call that, like I don't know, whatever that is, right? However we colloquially use but maybe aval means more like in truth. Like maybe it means in truth, like we're getting like tachlis. You know that expression? Like it's, right, like it's not, on the other hand, we are sinners, it's like, so in that case, to me, it reads heavier, right? Like it's heavier. Like it's not, oh, but by the way, I'm a sinner, right? Like, it's like, I'm really a sinner. Yeah. Here, let me give you this just to help us all out.
When God says that to Abraham, but really, your wife is going to have a child. Is this after Sarah has laughed? Well, she's laughed in her mind, but God knows that. I don't
think
remember.
he laughs. Well, she laughs, but he also, right, is like.
Yeah, but I mean, is God correcting both of them?
Oh, I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. But either way, right, like in truth, this is coming. Questions, comments about any of that?
So, but if you think about the Aval as in truth, then to Monica's point, maybe the but word is actually their wrong. But the in truth word.
Right. That's So it could be that there may be.
But actually, not just but.
Right.
It has more oomph.
Right. There may be more oomph to aval. Right. More serious. Yeah. So when we read that line, whatever it was, tzadikim anachnu v'lo chatanu, aval anachnu chatanu. Tzadikim we are, and not sinner. We have not sinned. Aval, right? Like it's a lot more serious. Dun dun dun, right? Like it's a gut punch, right? It pulls you up. There's nowhere to run. All right, so let's go to the next page where it says Hakarat HaTov, recognizing the good. Questions, comments, anything? All right, good. So this is an Ashamnu, right? The Vidui. So this is an Ashamnu, right? You know Ashamnu, Bagadnu, right? You got to do that. The whole list, it's an acrostic. Y'all know that, right? Do you know that? It's an acrostic, right? You got that, right? Do they have it in this current one, or the Gates of Repentance? A litany of woes, right? Is that in this one too? Did they keep that one? A litany of woes. So this one, okay, so I'm not saying that the editors of the new Machzor listened to me. I'm not saying that they didn't listen to me. I don't know. But when this book was coming out, they had at CCR conventions, they had kind of like they had seminars where they would sort of reveal the latest bit and sort of workshop it a little bit. So I went to one of them, and they had this. So this is an acrostic, if you notice, in the Hebrew up top. They also did it down below. And it is in the positive. It's in the positive. And this is on page, oh shoot, it broke out. 659, is it? I mean, you all have the book in front of you. Yeah.
The first number is actually total. It looks like
It's a 5 or 6. It's towards the end. The point is, it's towards the end. But when they brought it out, it was right up front. It was like Erev Yom Kippur. Yeah.
I'm just going to say, it's not there by itself. It stands together with the negative.
Right. So it's there. I mean, you can look it up. It's right there. It's either, what is it? 659. My point, when they first started, in one of the early iterations, before it was published, it was right, it's like one of those, like a soft cover, right? They had it very early on. And I raised my hand and I said, if I read this at Kol Nidre, I'm going to work tomorrow. I'm done. I feel pretty good about this. Like, it's a whole positive thing. So I'm really not, I'm not a sinner at all, turns out. I'm actually awesome. So I'm going to read this and listen to Kol Nidre, and then I'm carrying on. It's not a problem. So you are going to say you don't like it, and that's okay, because I want to drill in on that. So, no, you don't like what I'm saying, which is perfect. Right. So what he said is, this is a participation trophy. Everybody gets a trophy. So it says, I love it's okay one day of the year to say, you know what, you sin. I'm just repeating it for Zoom people, but and I think there's something really powerful about that and about this day, right? It's not an ordinary day. We don't often walk around saying we're sinners, right? But this is the day for us to do it. We're aware of the things we've done wrong, but right? Hold on a second, Monica. So this one says, we loved and we wept, we were kind and spoke thoughtfully, we were faithful and trusting, we put forth effort, we were mindful, we embraced, we took delight in the holy books, we were creative and we yearned, we fought for justice and searched out the good, we tried our best and we were attentive, we did what you commanded us to do, we found meaning in Torah, and most of the time we did what is right, we proclaimed your name, we were accepting, we were joyful, and we cared. I'm telling you, if this were on page 45, it's the shortest Yom Kippur I'm ever going to have. It needs the Aval, right? Right. They forgot the Aval. It is next to, all right, then below they went crazy. They were really enjoying it. We have aspired, we have befriended, we have created, we have delighted. It goes on and on. You can take a look. They did it very lovely. We have embraced our dear ones and held them close. So what page was it on? What was it? 659. All I'm saying is, I'm not saying it's because of me. I'm not saying it wasn't because of me. They just took it out of Kol Nidre. That's all I'm saying. And they put it towards the back. Because I understand in the back, it's kind of a nechemta. Like, you could be really depressed by the time Yom Kippur is over. Oh my God, I'm a horrible, horrible person.
It's only 7 pages after the actual.
Is that where it is? So it's in the Nila, right? It's in the Nila. Yeah, you've gone the whole day. Right.
And you confessed all the negative things.
Right.
Okay. And then, just before the gates close,
Yes.
you say, but I still have goodness in me. And when I first time I saw this, I loved it. But I agree with you, it doesn't belong in the beginning. but I don't think there's anything wrong with having it as a, in addition to all of these things, which are in truth what I have done and what I'm confessing, I still recognize that there's goodness in me and in all of us.
So I still believe in humanity. Okay, so but it's interesting. So no, I like it. But you're flipping the aval, right? Like in truth, that's what you're saying. In truth, we do have goodness in us. Yeah, but no, it's a nice use of the aval, right? So if we're looking at aval as something that's really forcing you to identify and examine your soul, you made mistakes, but you're a good person, right? Right. Saying it doesn't negate the other. Right. But I'm just saying, maybe it's and, but I'm just thinking, like, I'm trying to riff off you here. I'm trying to support you there. So, like, if you're using aval, you could imagine a scenario where people are just going to be depressed and think too lowly of themselves. And so this, after a whole day of really investigating their soul, this aval could say, but listen, you're a good person. You're flawed like everyone else, but you're a good person. Like, don't walk out of Yom Kippur, right? The goal of Yom Kippur is not to walk away feeling worse than, like, it's to be honest with yourself. It's personal accountability. It's not a day to, like, need medication by the time we're done. You know, like, it's not, that's not the goal, right? I'm not trying to pick on people who use medication. I'm just, like, right, so there's something there that it's that reverse. It's like you think you're great, but you have problems. And then when we get to the end of the day, listen, now you think you have problems, but look, you're okay. You're all right. Yeah.
Well, what I think is, if you look to the left, it has 4 sections, and it defines them. Entering the final confession. The final confession.
Oh.
And this one is, you hold out your hand.
And what does that mean to you?
And then you go forth. Well, I think you've offered every part of yourself. And now you're saying, we've done it. We've done everything we could see my hand. We've done everything we could possibly do.
Right.
That's the way
We've done everything we could, and so now we're...
And now I'm holding out my hand. Please.
It's an interesting, it is an interesting, I think that works with the metaphor of the gates, right? Because at some point, as the gates close, don't we have we're pleading with God, right? Like, we've done our job, right? We've done our job. We've done everything we are supposed to do on Yom Kippur. And the gates are closing, and let's go, God. Let's go. We've done our part. You need to respond. That's why we've been here. And maybe there's something to that as the gates are closing, right?
Maybe this is more aspirational.
Hold that thought.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, so first off, I've been to a lot of Ne'ilah services, and I've always come out of the day feeling good, even without text like this that tries to give me a gold star for showing up. It's like, no, the whole point of Yom Kippur is to acknowledge that we have work to do, that we are flawed in various ways, and we are here, on, figurative or sometimes literal bended knee, pleading for another chance, but it's no good if you're just going to go back and do the same things. So if this instead started out, but yet there is, despite all of what we have done, there is goodness in us and we have done these things, I would feel a little better about it. Here, just, like, oh, yay, and we're good people too. This doesn't work for me. If the part that follows were in the future tense, I would like it a lot.
Ooh.
If this came out as a resolution that we will aspire to reach higher and we will befriend those in need and we will create works of beauty, how is this day changing us? If it put it in future tense, I would feel good about it. The way it is now, even in Ne'ilah, I'd rather not do it.
Now, aspirational. And to follow.
Yes,
Monica,
see that.
Monica, as the English teacher, change the verb and make it present or future. We will. I'm lost here.
And it has nothing to do with the paper.
What did you mean by aspirational?
Well, it's what we should aspire to, what we should, that the coming year, the year to come, we should be able to look back and say, we've loved, so it's looking into the future as we, so it's 5784,
Right.
and we're looking back at 5783, and we did it. We did love, and we were kind, and we learned our lessons.
That's nice. Oh, that's a nice
So
one.
imagine us a year from now saying,
Oh, right. Could we in 5784, could we say this like legitimately? Could we get there? Yeah. Okay. I want to comment one more thing about respirational. Go ahead.
That would be really nice, but what they're trying to do is follow the form of Ashamnu and so on. We have done this, we have done that. To put it in another tense would mean you might need more than one word, and it would lose that echoing quality.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree.
most people aren't going to read it in the Hebrew though, so if you make the English word.
It's true. Oh, sorry. Oh. Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, two things that I noticed with this is that one, the first thought was we aspired to, we loved, we wept, we did all this, but we didn't do this other thing. So we had, our intention was to do good, and we wound up screwing up in some way. And that's what I see in this. And then there's also, and sorry I read ahead, but the bottom footnote of the actual confession on page 653 says that God is saying, to Bill's point, but you still get a trophy. You still did this. It's talking about God saying, you are not as bad as you guys have been portraying yourselves all day. You've done this, and you've done that, and you've done that. So I think that those are just the two thoughts that were, no conclusion, just thoughts.
Cool. Before you go, so I taught this somewhere else, and someone else also said it was aspirational, but they saw it aspirational in like a guilt sort of manner, like we have aspired to reach higher, we have befriended those in need, we have created works of beauty, we have delighted in holy books. Ooh, I haven't done. Like they were like, I didn't do that. I should try to do that. Like it was sort of funny. Like it's the reverse for that person. Like instead of we did this horrible thing, we did that horrible thing, and right, which most of them we didn't, right? But every now and then when you read the list, you're like, And so here it was like he's reading the positive, and then he was like, ooh, I need to aspire to do, join hands to build community. Like I really haven't done that very much. Yeah, Joe. Hold on.
Is this on? Yeah, I guess it is on. I'm going to tag on to Monica because I liked very much what she said. The wording here on this made me think of somebody patting themselves on the back with both hands at the same time. That's how strongly the image came to me. And Monica said, change the tense. Take out the word have. You haven't done it yet, but this is what I aspire to.
Yeah, could be.
And that makes more sense to me.
Could be.
It's a modality switch at the end all day.
Okay.
It's been literal, right? So here, in case the whole day of literalness isn't working for you, it's the switch in the negative. You can't read this and actually think that you will actually achieve it. I don't view it as a participation trophy. It's you can't live up to it. And it's similar to, Moses spends the whole Torah telling Jews, follow what you're supposed to, and at the very end switches into poetry, just as a last-ditch effort to try a different modality to get it to work.
Right. Yeah. You understand that all of this is poetry, right? It lands the way it lands, so there's no answer to this, right? I just want to be clear. Like, how it hits you is how it hits you. That's just the nature of poetry.
So when we recite the list of the sins that we have committed, we say it in the plural, knowing that I individually have not done all of these things, but within the broader community,
someone with whom I'm connected, because I'm part of the community, has done that. And I think you can read this positive one in the same way. I may not myself have done all of these things, but within this community, there is someone
Yeah.
who has done each of these things.
Sure.
And so this is also in the plural.
Yeah, which is very nice. Just for some people, it's aspirational. For some people, it's uplifting. For some people, it's a nechemta. For some people, it's a participation trophy.
So just going off what you just said, Barbara, I like that. But I think it also, like on the flip side, yeah, some of us in the community have done this, but also as a reflection of, but have I. So it's also, atonement of sorts, and just contemplation and on, what, not like, I don't like this whole like pat on your back kind of thing in general. So this is too much. So when I read this again, like what I just said, I would kind of more think about these global concepts and have I contributed to them.
Right. In that sense, it's a very aspirational list, right? Because everything's positive, and have I done it? No, you don't see it that way.
Yeah, maybe.
But I thought that's what you were saying. Like you see some.
No, I was just saying that I have not done them. I don't know if I will do them. I'm just acknowledging that I haven't.
Okay. So she said, I haven't done them. Maybe I won't get a chance. But who was up first? I think we'll get a new voice. Yeah.
Well, the only thing is right off the bat in the beginning, we say that, we say to God not to be indifferent, and then we say we are arrogant and we are stubborn, and it's almost like this is showing our arrogance and stubbornness because, as I said, maybe it's the conservative Jew in me. I don't see a problem of, having this one day of saying, yes, we've done all this stuff, we're sorry, we'll do better. We don't need to say, be stubborn and arrogant, say, oh yeah, but remember, we did all these good things here also. I mean, that's contradicting what we said right off the bat.
In 500 years from now, someone's going to unearth one of these machzorim, and there's going to be many PhDs coming out of why someone felt there was a need to put this in. Maybe it's just a big nechemta. You know what a nechemta? I know I've talked about that with you. A nechemta is what you add at the end of a sermon so that you don't send people home depressed, right? So when the rabbi is like, but we can fix it, right? Like that sort of thing, but we can make it better, right? Because otherwise you're like, the world's terrible and I'm awful, and then you just go home and you feel terrible. So that's what a nechemta. So you're always supposed to end like Torah study or a sermon or something with something uplifting, something uplifting. Send you out on a high, send you out with encouragement, right? So given that it's on page 659 or wherever, maybe that's the function, right? We've made it through the day. We've had this really cheshbon nefesh, that deep connection into your soul, and then now we're leaving on a high.
So,
Okay, so the question was, don't you get that with the shofar blowing? Yes, that's what the Tekiah Gedolah is supposed to do. Yes, it should. Now you all know. But a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people aren't well versed in what the symbolism means. They just think Tekiah Gedolah means bagels. And so, yes, Tekiah Gedolah is that moment where you are kicked off and, get out there, right? So, yeah, but not everyone does that. So I think, look, we have the spectrum of knowledge and awareness by Reformed Jews is vast. And perhaps a wee bit of training wheels is not the worst thing in the world. 1, 2, and then I want to get to the next one because I want to show you another one.
So I just want to come back. I just want to come back to your organization, because the organization of the service that you just articulated is what this is doing. So those of us who have the black and white only, you should look at the prayer book. Why? Because there is blue for each of the headings. And what you just said was, after confessing our sins last night and today for the entire day, we then enter the final confession. So what comes after final confession? So if you look here, the first couple of pages of this vidui is the final confession. We now have confessed. We're still really bad. We've confessed all our sins. Right. But we then move on. And what we move on to, according to the prayer book in blue, is we hold out our hand, as you indicated. But then the final part is we go forth in gladness. And that follows the construction you just said was we want people to leave Yom Kippur not in a depressed state, I'm a horrible person, but rather the purpose of Yom Kippur is to confess your sins and then move on, to correct that which was wrong. And as you move forward, to then recognize you are going to essentially cure that which was wrong. That's what this section is, it's in blue. But the only thing I would point out is, my view is this particular recognizing the good passage probably belongs in the blue, go forth in gladness, and not in the you hold out your hand part. So.
Okay.
So this is kind of related to where I was going to go with this, which is that when looking at a piece of liturgy, it's not just what does this mean, but why is it here? Not why is it written at all, but why is it here in the service? God forgave us 6 pages earlier, so we're not pleading our case here anymore. We shouldn't be pleading our case. And and without this text, we still get text that conveys that we have been forgiven and are getting another chance. And that's the high I want to go out on, the high that I have been forgiven, not the high that I am perhaps pretending to be a tzaddik by saying, oh, but I'm a good person.
Right.
No, I want the confirmation that God has forgiven me and given me some path forward. So going back to if these were future tense, if this were really aspirational. But to me, this works against the function of the whole Yom Kippur service.
But wait,
yeah.
Now I thought I was following you.
Yeah.
So I thought you were saying that this is, in words, what Tekiah Gedolah is.
No, sorry.
Okay.
I meant the whole, what you were saying before about end on a nechemta.
Okay.
To me, this is not a nechemta.
It's not a nechemta.
This is not a nechemta because this is me saying I'm a good person.
Okay.
Well, I can say I'm a good person all I want. That doesn't make it so. The nechemta is that despite our messy, complicated mix of doing good things and doing bad things, that, and that we have really messed up, that God has nonetheless forgiven us, and that we're getting here's some stuff to work on for next year. Okay. That's the nechemta to me, that we are forgiven, and this works against that to me, because this is letting me pretend that I get to be a good person and dress up like a tzaddik, even if I'm not.
Okay. All right.
Well, then.
Last one, then I'm moving on, because I do want to get to the next thing.
Well, then, I have never seen this before. When I read it the first time, I've read it already now 5 times, I thought it was aspirational. But when I read it so many times, this actually comes closer for me to reality of what I have done. The other things are so negative that I can't really identify with them, and I kind of blow them off, which is not good.
Right. All right, I want to move on because I want to read this next one. So the next document I have there, so it's called A Collective Apology from Millennial Jews on Yom Kippur, which, the title is already a joke, right? It's already, perhaps not to you, but I'm seeing a lot of people sort of smirking at the title, at the headline, Collective Apology for Millennial Jews. So this was written in 2017, and millennials have a certain reputation, for whatever it is. But I thought it was really interesting. I actually thought it was a really good piece. We'll see what you think of it. So here's how it goes. I think the person's trying to keep the acrostic going with ABC. So the writer, who is the writer here? Kate. So Kate is trying to keep the acrostic going. For the sin of being anxious about literally everything. See, you chuckle, right? Okay, right? Because it's like a joke, millennials are anxious. But let's see if we can. Oh, about literally? So let's just go in and see if it continues to be sort of a gag version of it. Because I'll spoiler, I don't think it is, right? But let's see if we can get into it. For the sin of comparing my life to others on social media. For the sin of drunk texting people I've tried to cut out of my life while sober. For the sin of too frequently prioritizing pizza over exercise. For the sin of getting sucked into Facebook when I ought to be working or sleeping or anything else. For the sin of gossiping, trash talking, and other forms of lashon hara. For the sin of sharing more hilarious memes than vital calls to action. For the sin of still not figuring out how to invest my money wisely or at all. For the sin of being too judgmental, full stop. For the sin of spending more on lattes than on tzedakah. For the sin of not calling my mother often enough. For the sin of sometimes neglecting my relationships rather than nurturing them. For the sin of for late night online shopping splurges. For the sin of putting myself down instead of practicing self-love. For the sin of staying quiet when I ought to speak out about injustices. For the sin of making my online life look better than reality. For the sin of not attending Shabbat services. For the sin of watching too much trashy TV and reading too few think pieces. For the sin of underestimating myself and capabilities. For the sin of online vanity and countless Instagram selfies. For the sin of wasting money, food, and time. For the sin of being extra, even though I'm still not convinced it's such a bad thing. For the sin of coveting youth rather than appreciating age. For the sin of zeroing in on the flaws of myself and others. Thoughts? Reactions?
I think it's an excellent list.
Let me give you that.
I think it's really a fine list and says a lot of the things that we want to aspire to.
It's really interesting, right? The first couple, you're like, oh, it's a gag, right? Millennials, right? So you think it's going to be a gag, but I think there's a lot here. Yeah.
As I think I'm allowed to criticize my own
Go
generation.
for it.
So, well, one, I still don't think it applies as much to older millennials.
Okay.
But this to me sounds like I'm not actually confessing. I'm what do you call it? Like, not humble bragging, but the humble confessing. Like I'm doing the opposite. I'm like, I'm so sorry I didn't care about myself enough. So I'm not saying I should care more about others. I'm like, it's so self-centered. It's like, I need to prioritize myself more. So I don't know. I feel like there's
Interesting.
something missing in just the whole tone. But
Actually, can you pass that right by?
So I agree. One thing I've learned as a parent that I never really thought about is that the Torah and the older liturgy can be very harsh. So like I had a discussion with my 10-year-old this morning about like, what's stoning? And I was like, well, there's some punishments in the Torah. Like, he's like, well, is it always stoning? And I'm like, you know what, I don't want to get into this because like he'll have nightmares.
Oh no, there's plenty of ways we can kill you.
Oh sure, yeah, I didn't tell him
No,
about.
we're not so boring as to only stone people.
So, I did always like that about the Asamnu, but like, in a way, there is almost an out of like, well, I didn't murder anyone this year, you know. I didn't embezzle a bunch of money. So, you know, like sometimes as a parent, there is a value in something, let's say like lighter, but like, you know, like the low level. It's nice to have a reminder of like the kind of, the lower level sins, right? Which, when I think about it, actually, that's one thing that the vidui is, I don't want to say missing, but it's almost not there. Like, yeah, I could be patient with my mom and listen for 5 more minutes. And like, where is that in the vidui? But here, I don't know, it still is kind of like a humble confession.
Right.
But in a way, it's getting maybe a little closer.
I once did say that. I gave a sermon. I looked at it. I was like, you people are fine. I actually said that. I was like, you're fine. You're not bank robbers. You don't embezzle, right? There's nobody, as far as I knew, in the 200 people in the room was a murderer. And I feel like I know my congregation, right? And I was like, it's not the top level, right? There's other stuff that we need to work on, right? We're fine, but, you know, that sort of thing.
There goes that part again.
Yeah.
To your point, when you said some of these things I can't relate to, there is sarcasm, there is wise guy stuff, but it is approachable, and it's accessible, and it starts making you think about your day-to-day life more than that you're wicked and you're doing all these sort of medieval horrible things.
Right.
So I think it's accessible for millennium and for us, for anyone non-millennial.
Oh, who by stoning? That's where it came from.
Right.
Yeah, the answer to your kid is that goes on to this day.
Well, then we ended up talking about the Ben Sora or Morer, and he started to get really worried because he's 10. And he started to get worried that like I was going to bring him in front of the Beit Din, and I was like, no, you're already righteous enough. Like,
He's 10?
he's 10.
He should worry.
I suppose I could say this about all the Vidui because I worry more about the community of Israel, the community of Jews, because so many Jews of every age don't understand that to be a Jew is not to be just an individual, it's the tension between individualism and community. And so the we, when we say we, assumes community to me. And I guess particularly with millennials, I worry about.
The what? Who do you worry about?
For millennials.
Yeah.
You know, so this is for millennials. This is written.
Well, it was written 2017 by a woman who's in that generation, and this is what the things she's working on in her own life.
Yeah,
right?
but what I'm saying that's her, one person, and I just think about that sea of people out there that don't even care about the fact that they're Jewish. That's what's bothering me.
I mean, that's sure, but Kate, what's her name? Bigham, whatever her name is. Like, she's trying to do her work, and she put it out as a thought piece, and she's trying to inspire people. So, I mean, yeah, but like that's, like I can't worry about, but what about nuclear war, right? Like, there's always something else, right? Like, she's trying to do her best. No, it doesn't.
Relating it to her life.
Like, doesn't that? I don't know. I think she's trying to do her best with her little corner. Sorry, and then pass. I'm just trying to get. Yeah, there you go.
As a therapist, I have to say, I think a lot of these are really what get in the way of people being their true, beautiful selves, is exactly these things, hating themselves or really being anxious just about everything, frankly. But so many of these, I think, are the actual impediments to people letting their soul kind of be more present in their lives, and so I like it.
So it didn't come across as a gag to you at all.
Well, a little. You know,
A little. I mean, it's.
But that's just to draw us in.
Right.
I mean, a lot of this. I mean, some of it I can relate to, and some of it a lot of people can relate to. But you know, I think she's using humor as a way to pull us in, and I think she's pulling us into something that she's onto something.
Yeah. When I first read the headline, I thought it was like a mashup between Yom Kippur and Mad Magazine. Like, that's what I thought. I was like, and millennials, Asham, like, that's what I thought. But, okay, Mad Magazine's a deep cut, I know, but there you go. You were going to say.
So therapy is great. I love therapy. That to me is a little separate from Yom Kippur. I feel like there's all the other days are great for therapy. The other thing, what Ruth was saying, I didn't notice at first, but this doesn't use we. This says my, not in every single thing, but it says myself and for, I don't know. So I think that's important, that we have less of an appreciation for community. And that kind of also goes back to saying, there's this self-centeredness. And the other thing is also alluding to what we had said before, is that there's not this poetry and this metaphor, which maybe most millennials don't appreciate, but I do. I love that, we kind of, that there's, just this metaphor, and it's not like all these literal little things that, they're important. I agree with them. They're relevant to me. I don't know that I want to translate this day to this.
I'm not sure it was meant to be like therapy or a moment to work out. I think it's I think it's identifying. I think right. I think that's what you're saying. Like the writer, this Kate woman, has identified things that are happening, at least in her experience of her at her age when she wrote it. All right. No, that's fine. We're okay.
Unlike the other ones that we've read, which are in the plural, and so it's very easy to say, oh, well, that's the guy over there did that. I didn't do that.
Right.
I found this much more relevant because just because it says I, then I have to think, well, I identify with many of these things, and I'm not a millennial.
You're not?
Well, I also think that the actual...
I was wondering where that other one was, yeah.
I stole it. That's why I'm here. But I think that the other one, when we're talking about we did this and we did that and we did all these pretty bad things, I think of that when I also think that I am standing for the Kaddish because there's people that don't have people to do it for them. So I'm doing it for perhaps the person that murdered somebody, for perhaps the person that stoned somebody or stole something. I'm doing that because I'm part of their community too, and they don't have the ability or the capability or the opportunity to do it. This is, I did this stuff. That's for the community as well as for me. This is more like for me. Like if there was like, in the book they had like a check block that when you do your...
So there is, right, and during the tefillah, there was a moment where we got silent. We had like silent reading, and I don't know if you saw it, but there was a list for things I've done. Oh God, somebody find it. For things I've done to the environment, for things I've done to my family, for things I've done, right? And then there is a list. The problem I have with that is that it's a built-in problem. The minute you publish it, it's frozen, right? Like it was probably really, really like, what is it? 308? Like it was probably perfect at the moment it got printed, and then, it's frozen. But let me offer this. Let me offer this as a little. Oh wait, I think last call. Go ahead.
I just want to say I'm Team Natalie. While I appreciate the specificity and that you can relate to this alternative list, for the most part, they're very personal. They're about personal growth. If we look at the traditional betray, steal, scorn, act perversely, cruel scheme, they're about our behavior with other people. And I think there's a much weightier meaning behind that. So to me, the Aval is, let's really work. What are the things that we do that affect other people and affect the world in a meaningful way?
Oh, by the way, so that is how they wrote this one. Did I include it here? Did I? Huh, I didn't include it. The Al Chet Shechatanu section, when you get back into that, take a look. It says Al Chet Shechatanu Lefanecha, which means for the sin that we have sinned. But the English is written in a couplet. I'm going to be wrong. I know there's like English teachers here and writers, so I'm like, but I think it's a couplet, and it says for the sin we have sinned, and for the harm I've done to the world, right? For the harm I've done to the world. And I think the editors are trying to say, here's the thing that we have done, and here's the impact that it's made, which may speak to what you were sort of saying, maybe sort of, but like here's the impact of what we have done. Because of that. So it's not just sort of this bland, for the sin that we have all sinned, yes or no, in my personal, like for me, is it a checklist? But there is a we impact. This is what happens to the world. Barbara, are you looking at it? What does it say? Okay. So let me wrap up. Let me see if I can come up with a nechemta for you. First of all, I think that when you look at the list and you say, I haven't done all that, first of all, if anyone is going to say, well, I haven't done that, you're like, Aval, like people, Aval. So let me just offer that to you. Like, just make sure, just do a little check, just check in with yourself, just make sure you're bringing in that Aval to make sure. You say, we haven't scorned, like, I don't know, what's the first thing that comes across your mind when you see homeless people downtown? Any scorning? Anyone? I'll cop to it, not my finest moment, right? There's a lot of stuff we do that we do it maybe on a more modest level that we, you know what I mean? Like whatever the betray, like I haven't betrayed anyone. Well, not like Succession, right? Or, like not like that, but like maybe like, check yourself. Bring in a good old Aval, and maybe, I don't know you, but maybe on a modest level that had an impact on another human being. So we might be in there. I'm not saying you. I don't know in your life. I don't know. Seem like a nice guy. But maybe, I don't know. But I'm just saying, just do a check. The other thing that I talk about at JJEP all the time is I'm trying to talk about, I had this teacher from Pardes, a liberal yeshiva, progressive yeshiva, and he talks about, we're working on prayer and how to make prayer utilitarian, how to make prayer useful, which is a whole other thing. So we're trying to figure out how to do that. And he talked about prayer detox. So he talked about prayer detox. When he teaches prayer, he starts off with prayer detox, meaning that he wants to, oh, you're in for the rant now. He wants to remove, and I'm trying to remove the reverence that we have for the book, okay? We have to dial back the reverence we have for that book. The Siddur and the Machzor were written over a period of time. If you read the notes in this Machzor, they will tell you when, 10th century, 12th century, 16th century. They'll tell you when. This thing is an anthology. It's a collection over time. The prayers that resonated with people got in and got canonized. The ones that did not resonate with people got cut, and they're on the editing room floor somewhere. They're in a Geniza somewhere in Toledo, Spain, never to be seen again. They've disintegrated by now, right? There's prayers and prayers and prayers and poems and poems and poems that people have written that the good ones stayed in, and the other ones, they went away, like any other poetry, right? So when, what? Yeah, the making of a Machzor. And look, when they made this one, there's lots of other Piyutim that are there. You go over to Beth Shalom, I pick on them all the time, because I go there all the time with JJEP. So you go to Beth Shalom, their Siddur is really, really big, because those people, like, they hate throwing out anything, right? Like, it's in their name, right? Like, they like to conserve stuff, right? They just want to conserve it. So, like, they're still doing Musaf, even though they all know they don't need to. But they conserve it. And so we don't do that. We have a lot of editing going on. But my point is to you is when you are reading these, right, see if you can take them as your own. It's just poetry. It's not the word of God, right? It's just poetry. It's stuff that people wrote to see if it could inspire somebody else to think about the things we're thinking about, right? You like the millennial one, you don't like the millennial one. The real proof is, does it work on your soul? Does it move you? For a lot of you, after you chuckled, right? You did, Aval, you did, right? You laughed, but then by the third one, you were like, ooh, right? There's something here, right? I like it, I don't like it, but there's something here. And I would just say that to you as we continue on with the afternoon, we get into Neela, and you think about these things, and you're thinking about your life, and you're thinking about the way you want to be, right? Like, it's just poetry. Let it wash over you. Read it, take in what you can, throw out what you don't like, read the notes on the side, but use whatever you can to be really honest with yourself. That's the goal of the day, just to be honest with yourself. And the book is a tool to get you there. And so with that, I wish you all a very, well, now we can say, right, the sun is starting to go. Gemar Tov, that's what you say at this point of the time. Gemar Tov, finish well. Off we go. I'm getting the late afternoon second wind, so I think I can make it. And Gemar Tov, and thank you all very much for letting me come teach. Thanks.